So good morning again.
Good morning.
It is an auspicious day. My mic is a little bit hot, Dylan. Thank you. Even though I am too. So this month is we're going to talk about love, as Stephen calls it, love. And today's lesson, I'm using the acronym L period, O period, V period, E period for the whole month. And this week is about, the talk title is Learn to Love. John O'Donohue, who is one of my very favorite authors, he's an Irishman, as you might imagine. And when I listen to him on tape, I just have such a crush on him. I can hardly stand myself. But he says we're always on a journey from darkness into light. Always on a journey from darkness into light. He also said that every thought we have is a flint moment, a spark of light from the inner darkness, and the brilliance of thought is born in darkness. Every idea that we have is born in darkness and brought to the light. And he kind of equates it to the first journey that we have from the darkness into light when we're born, when we come through the birth canal and we come out of the mother's womb. And that every idea that we have comes from the womb of a creation. In much the same way, when we awake from sleep, we come out of the darkness into the light. And every day we're reborn. Every morning when we wake up and we first see the light of day, we are reborn. Most of the great teachers of truth would say that when we awaken from the sleep of not knowing God, we are also reborn anew. That's why there are religions that profess to have people born again, as the saying goes. And I think for me, every day is about being a born-again religious scientist. Every day is something new in my life where I can put into practice the things that Ernest Holmes is teaching us. Learning to love is much like awakening from a sleep of some kind. Not just learning to love one another as we do in relationships that are sexual, but in relationships that transcend that, if you will, and move beyond it. A mother or father loves their child. A friend loves her friend. A student loves his teacher. And so once the soul awakens, the search begins. The search begins really in earnest, no pun intended. And we can really never go back. We can never go back once we embark upon this journey. Some people would like to believe that we coast a little bit along the way, but I don't even think that we coast. I think that there's always something that is wanting to be brought to the light for us. O'Donohue says that from then on, we are inflamed with a special longing that will never again let us linger in the lowlands of complacency and partial fulfillment. Because each one of us is fulfilled to a certain degree. And that would be the partial fulfillment, perhaps, of the way we're living life right now. Not in the way that life is intended for us. That God, as my wonderful Joel Osteen says, wants to pour its blessings upon us, and we're going, not yet, not now. We're holding back. Ernest Holmes and many of the other great teachers have said that a mind once expanded to a new level of consciousness will never, ever go back to the way it was before that awareness set in. So that every day we really are born again. And learning to love in the spiritual sense means that we love everyone in spite of their behavior. And sometimes when the behavior seems totally incongruent, it's a stretch, isn't it? It feels like that sometimes, doesn't it? The soul needs love as urgently as the body needs air. And according to O'Donohue, in the warmth of love, the soul can be itself. And I think for every one of us, that's what we're looking for, is we're looking for our true identity as spiritual beings, and how we relate to God and how we relate to other people in our lives. That's what the seeker is seeking to find out. It's his or her relationship to God. All the possibilities of the human destiny are asleep in our souls. And we are here at this center to realize and honor these possibilities. It's amazing to me to remember so long ago when I first came to the Science of Mind, and I was told that the possibilities of living life and living it more abundantly could be mine. I was not in a good place in those days when I first came here. And so what I realized is that they were trying to talk to me about love. Love, God, God, love, love, God, God, love. And I got a sense, I always knew God, right? And I've said this before on a Sunday morning. I always believed in God, but there were times in my life when I didn't think that God believed in me. And I know that maybe some of you have experienced that. But when love comes into our lives, unacknowledged dimensions of our value awaken and blossom and grow. You know, that I don't think this is a singular journey for any of us. That in order for us to know love, we have to be love. But you might ask, what about the opposite of that? What about people who aren't so loving? What happens to this desire to love unconditionally when someone is critical or antagonistic or just plain mean-spirited? What do we do with that? Well, it's a call to prayer. It's an absolute call to prayer. Are we evolved enough to see the God essence even when we have our feelings hurt? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe not. You know, this week I received one of those notes on my desk. Someone took the time to write to me, and with my name specifically on the front of it, so there was no question about that it belonged to me and that it was intended for my eyes. And I took it as a really wonderful disguise for a prayer request. And wonderful and awful all at the same time. And it was typed. So I know the person who wrote the note. She did sign her name, but I know that the person who wrote the note planned ahead in bringing it to the center. And while I don't know for sure, I think it might have actually even been placed in the offering basket, maybe last Sunday. It was, as I said, signed, but no one on our rosters at the center has that name. It's not someone who's a card-carrying member or someone who is a financial contributor to our church, because I had our bookkeeper look into it. Because I actually want to have conversations with those people who are my coaches. I want to know when I hear from someone like that, I want them to know that they're in my life to coach me at some level. Now you might think, oh my God, the woman's a Pollyanna. But seriously, it's taken many years for me to come to this place in consciousness. This didn't happen overnight, because my past response would have been to be hugely defensive. And I want to engage a whole bunch of people in this effort in order for them to, it's very self-serving, wouldn't you know, to tell them how wonderful to have them tell me how wonderful I am. Well, you know, sometimes when one person doesn't think I'm so wonderful, guess who gets all the attention? The one person who says I'm not so wonderful. Now, last week was a plethora of wonderful, wonderful compliments to this center, to the leadership of this center, to the board of this center. I got them right, left, and center, to the practitioners who participated in the practitioner symposium. But the one person that I needed to do the most prayer work around was the one who wrote that letter. Now, does that mean I'm not evolved? No. It just means I'm human. I'm human. I am not, however, willing to listen to someone who disguises their criticism in the form of a prayer request, if you will, asking for me or the board to change so that they will feel better. You know, I don't know that that's our job. And I realize that this week has been one of those roller coasters of the pinnacles of joy and the depths of despair. And regardless of its sadness or beauty, each day empties itself and vanishes. It does, it vanishes. However, that which seems to pass away on the surface is etched in the memory forever. Now, what happens when someone is critical like that? Well, I get to look at those arenas where I can do something about that. I'm coachable, I'm teachable. You know, why is it that we have days of delight upon delight, and what we remember is that one single critical letter or comment that someone makes? Because deep inside of us, we might believe that what that person is saying. We might have a misgiving, deeply subjectified, that says maybe that person is right. You know, it doesn't matter if they're right or wrong. Raymond Charles Barker says that what you think of me is none of my business. What anyone thinks of us is none of our business. What would I say to this woman who wrote, or to anyone who finds reasons to criticize our wonderful center? Is simple. If we are not meeting your needs, then maybe there's someplace else you need to be. I mean, seriously. That's why we have different places for people to go and practice their spiritual beliefs and faith and love. Because there's someplace else that might be able to meet my needs better than being here. Learning to love ourselves enough not to stay anywhere out of resentment and criticism is a big key to our spiritual development. That not only means our church or our center, but it means jobs, it means marriages, it means in friendship with someone. Do you know that many of my friendships went by the wayside when I came back to religious science after a long-term absence? Because one particular friend said to me that, you know, if I didn't care about myself, I needed to care about my daughter. Nathan wasn't born at the time, but she said, you know, if you don't care about your own soul burning in the fires of hell for eternity, then you should think about your daughter's soul. And that would mean going to the Baptist church, in her estimation. Well, that wasn't going to happen. Clearly, that wasn't going to happen. I'll never forget that, and I share this in class sometimes, I'll never forget that summer when my friend gifted my daughter with a Bible study school at the Baptist Center. And I knew I was in trouble the day she walked in the door, slammed the door, and she said, "Mom, do you know that I'm a sinner?" She was 4. She was 4. So she said, "What's a sinner?" So that lent itself to a whole different energy, and we came back to religious science, and we've stayed here ever since. So I won't try to change your mind. I'm not here to change your mind, but I might be able to shed some light on the darkness for the rebirth that needs to take place. You know, if you have something that's going on in your life that you need to talk about, or something you hear on Sunday morning that might not sit well with you, the door's open. Come and see me. I am not going to criticize or judge. I am going to work along with you so that we can both see the truth together. Again, love is the nature of the soul. Love is the nature of the soul. And when we love and allow ourselves to be loved, we begin to inhabit the kingdom of heaven on earth. We do. Fear changes into courage, emptiness becomes sufficiency, and distance becomes intimacy. When our needs are not being met, we sometimes point the finger out there and blame, as though someone else needs to change or adjust who they are in order for us to feel better about ourselves. Any criticism I have for anyone else really is a criticism of myself. That's just the way it is. Everything gets turned inward, even though it appears as though we're pointing outward. Debbie Ford says in The Dark Side of the Light Chasers that I might not specifically have those characteristics I think you have and need to fix, but I'm afraid I might have those characteristics. You know, there's where that comes from a little bit for some of us. O'Donoghue says that in a vast universe that often seems sinister and unaware of us, we need the presence and shelter of love to transfigure our loneliness. You know, a lot of times when we put the burden of responsibility out there, there's a sense of loneliness on our part. And what I realized is that, you know, one day, very long time ago, I'm never lonely. That would be an insult to God and to myself. I'm never bored. That would be an insult to God and to myself. So Ernest Holmes would tell us that we need the presence and the shelter of God to transfigure our loneliness. Because one who is deeply connected to the essence of spirit would never be critical or dissenting in any way and would never feel lonely. You know, it's true that, you know, that the prayer of the footsteps that you see so often printed up in curio shops. You know, the story goes that, you know, why did God abandon me in my hour of need when there were only one set of footprints in the sand? Well, God said those are the times when I carried you. So, we cannot fill up our lives with objects, possessions, or people. We can't do that. We have to go deeper into our personal emptiness to find that flame of love for everyone and everything. Maybe we're like, take baby steps. Take baby steps. Find someone you like and begin to love them. I mean, there's a starting point, wouldn't you say? That would be a good place to start. You know, no one can hurt us deeply as the ones we love. Isn't there a song about that? You only hurt the ones you love. I'm not going to sing, don't worry. You only hurt the ones you love. You know, here's the dichotomy. When we allow others into our lives, we leave ourselves open and vulnerable to all kinds of things. You know, that's the byproduct of relationship. Don't you know? You know, life is dangerously unpredictable. People change, often quite dramatically and quite suddenly. You know, when I first came to the Science of Mind, I've shared on Sunday mornings before, I alienated a whole lot of people because I walked around with my soapbox because I thought everybody should be in the Science of Mind. I still kind of think that way. But I don't talk about it so much as I did before. You know, I'd carry my soapbox, and the moment you opened up about something, I'd put my soapbox down, stand up, and start preaching. And I even alienated my family members. But now they're all in this teaching. But they had to evolve to it on their own. They had to do that. And I know people years ago that I blathered to. I cannot begin to tell you how boring I must have been to them. But what I know is I planted the seed of thought. I planted the seeds in their minds, and many of them are now practicing members of this center. Not this particular center, but this Centers for Spiritual Living. O'Donoghue says that we carry around the corpses of past relationships, oh my gosh, and are addicted to hurt as confirmation of our identity. Gosh, that's creepy. What we need to do is recognize all relationships are a gift and remain open to the blessings that every relationship brings to our lives. It doesn't always feel that way. You know, years ago, Michael Beckwith wrote this wonderful piece about relationships. He's never given credit for it, but it goes on the internet every once in a while, and you might have seen it yourselves, where he says that people come into our lives for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. You know, some people come just to mess with our heads a little bit. And we get messed up. We get distracted for a little while. And then we move on and we realize that maybe those people, they brought a blessing with them when they came. Because maybe we might have just been a little stagnant in what we were doing or where we were going. And sometimes those people who mess with us the most are the ones as we look back on as our most valuable teachers. The Dalai Lama confirms that Chairman Mao was one of his greatest teachers. You know, he was exiled from his homeland, but he still sees him as one of his greatest teachers. When we love, we open our lives to the other with a capital O. All our barriers are down, and the protective shells that we think we've created so wonderfully are broken wide open. It's kind of like the Humpty Dumpty complex, you know? The shell gets broken and it really can't be put back again. But what happens is that darkness that was inside of us now has the light shone upon it. And when the light is shown upon it, we realize that the other, with a capital O, is God. God is in our lives. This person, no matter how unlovable or critical or hurtful, is given absolute permission to come into the deepest temple of our spirit when we are allowing it. The critical or hurtful or seemingly unlovable person is the one that needs our love the most. We can be the voice of reason in an apparently unreasonable situation by using this teaching to educate other people. I mean, I'm not talking about going around with a soapbox so much, but sometimes when we're in a conversation with someone and that person is ragging or raging about someone else and we remain silent, that implies agreement a lot of times. And so what we have done is we have created the impetus for maybe something that we really wouldn't want if we spoke up and said something. And not in a critical or judgmental way, but in a way that, you know, just simply says, could you entertain the possibility of looking at this differently? That's one of my favorite sayings. The other one, as you know, is wow. Because sometimes that's all you can say when someone's in their stuff. Wow. You know, that means wow. Wow. You know, it means a whole lot of things. It takes great courage to let someone in close enough to give them permission to unleash their monsters in our presence, so that they can be viewed with love and we can shine a conscious light upon them. The worst monster, though, is the one that we keep hidden from ourselves. And some of them look like jealousy and criticism and hurt and resentment and punishment. And when we learn to love, we let someone so near that this person becomes a part of us. And we see clearly how we are all interconnected. We all are. As O'Donoghue says in The Sacred Kinship of Real Love, two souls are twined. The outer shell and the contour of identity become porous, and we suffuse each other. The Gaelic term for soul love is anam cara. Anam is the Gaelic word that means soul, and cara is the word for friend. So anam cara in the Celtic tradition was soul friend, soul friend. And in the early Celtic church, the person who acted as a teacher, a companion, or a spiritual guide was called anam cara. We are all soul friends with one another, here especially. Learning to love each other in a way that shows that we're teachers and companions and spiritual guides to one another. You are my anam cara, and I am your anam cara. We share our innermost selves, our minds and our hearts, as an act of recognition that I recognize in me the God essence that I recognize in you, your God essence. And it's the namaste that you hear from the Sanskrit. The God in me acknowledges the God in you. Turn to someone sitting next to you and put your hands in front of you and say namaste. Now, this act of recognition and belonging at a very deep soul level is what connects each one of us. Not all that other, I almost said a bad word, not all that other stuff. I've been around my kids too much lately. All that other stuff that is seems to be the real stuff. It's the fake stuff. It isn't the real stuff. And so what we know in that belonging at a very deep soul level, that we have within us the opportunity to see the God in everyone and everything, no matter what it appears on the surface, that God is all there is, and that we can relate to one another at a very deep soul, anam cara level, knowing that with God, all things are possible. Will you join me in consciousness, please? Oh, gosh. And so today I know that learning to love is another process that we engage in on our own journey of self-discovery. That loving one another is the epitome of prayer at its highest and best. And that in making that declaration, I love you, I declare I love me. Because I cannot know something about someone else until I know it about myself. So I know that God is love. Therefore, I am love. I know that that pure essence of spirit within me is that place that I call upon. That place where all ideas take form in the darkness within me. And I bring those ideas out into the light. The possibility of loving everyone and everything in my life is not only a possibility, but it becomes a reality with a capital R. My God moment. That when I can step aside from what appears to be something judgmental, hurtful, critical, whatever it is, that I can move into that love space within me and know that that is simply a cry for love or a cry for help. And so I acknowledge those cries within myself as well. That there is something in me that wants to know that I am okay, that I am all right in the midst of this. That I don't have to measure up to anyone else's idea of perfection, that I am perfection at the level of spirit. I am the perfect me. There's nothing I need to do or fix or change. And so as I speak that in the first person for everyone here present today, I do so knowing that there is a greater idea that wants to be born here. There's a greater knowing that each one of us wants to have. And that is that all this peripheral stuff, all that stuff that appears to be on the surface, is just there for us to have a five-sensory experience. At a multi-sensory level, God is all there is. And so I know today, more than I've ever known before, that I am deeply, irrevocably connected to each and every person in my life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And it's those that bring me my most valuable coaching moments that are the ones most valuable in my own journey of self-discovery. And so I love deeply, madly, passionately. And in that love sometimes there is pain. But at the other end of it all, there is the pleasure of knowing that I am God's means to be. And so therefore, I take this very seriously. I take this journey of self-discovery very seriously. And yet, On the other hand, there is something incredibly lighthearted about giving up what anyone else thinks of me, knowing that all I have to know is that I am loved by God because I am God, and I love myself just the way I am.
I am in the darkness. I am in the light. See me if you can. Everywhere I am, I'm dwelling in the sunshine. Dwelling in the shadows, dwelling in believers, and in those who don't know. Tell you that I am all appearing. I am all invisible. I am in the highest, and I am in the very low. I am in the darkness. I am in the light. See me if you can. Everywhere I am.
And so it is. Would you welcome Howard Fox back to the platform?